Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to our Cadillac Planning Commission, March 25th, 2024. If I could bother our complete audience to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll, please, Ms.
Yes.
Danielle.
Wilkins? Here. Host?
Here.
Rice?
Here.
Bunce? Bosher? Bauman? Fent?
Yes, here.
Putman?
Here. Thank you. Approval of this evening's agenda again for March 25th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Bent, host.
Putman?
Yes.
Bosher? Bauman? Bunce? Fent?
Yes.
Rice?
Yes.
Wilkins?
Yes.
Host?
Yes.
Is it you had to have a B in your last name to not be here tonight?
Good observation. Approval of February 28th, 2024 meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it. Nah, give it to Dale.
Bauman? Fent?
Yes.
Bunce? Wilkins?
Yes.
Host?
Yes.
Rice?
Yes.
Bosher? Putman?
Yes. Thank you. We have no public hearings. We have new business. Having read new business, you running with this, Mr. Wallace?
I will, if we can get the PowerPoint. And then just start the session under, from the beginning. Over there.
Well, there's a vacation request.
There.
What's that?
What's that?
Vacation request.
Was too late. Too late for spring break.
All right.
Okay.
Wexford County.
Yeah,
It
that was
I got
good.
it. I got it.
That was good.
was a little slow. It's all right. We got
It took
it.
us all a while.
Wexford County is requesting a vacation of streets and alleys near their 5 parcels off Lincoln Street. The reasoning for this request is to allow future development of the land. If this vacation request is granted, the county has talked about combining the 5 parcels for future development use. Here, you can see highlighted in blue are the parcels that the county owns. This slide in yellow, you can see the vacation request. So the property is described as a portion of Garfield Street running east and west of Diggins Street, and an alley south of Garfield Street running east to Diggins Street. Then Diggins Street running north from that alley to Lincoln, and then the alley north of Garfield running west from Diggins Street. Staff supports this vacation. This vacation request went through department head review. And again, this vacation will allow the county to future develop the property. The recommendation before the Planning Commission tonight would be that you guys recommend the approval of the requested street and alley vacation to City Council. City Council is the one that approves street vacation requests. It actually is an ordinance, and they will set a public hearing for this request as well.
Oh, okay.
Do we
So
need
the
to go-
people that live on Division then can have,
Yep. So, under Michigan law, each landowner whose property adjoins the vacated street or alley owns to the center line of the vacated street or alley. So the county doesn't get this whole request if only for the portions of their property that abut this alleyway. So the other properties seen in here where this alleyway runs would acquire from their property lines to the center, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And was there a proposed use for this land?
Yeah, go ahead, Joe. Just come up and say who you are and.
My name's Joe Porterfield. I'm the Wexford County Administrator. Our hope is, we haven't really formally proposed anything yet, but our hope is to build a building there that possibly we can move the offices from our Lake Street building over there eventually, and then, sell that piece of property, hopefully for some other development.
Okay. So it'll stay in county hands.
Correct.
That is the plan.
That
for
is
now.
the plan.
Yeah, okay. Good, thank you.
Any other
Any other
questions?
questions for Joe? Anybody? No?
Yeah, that's the only
We're good.
question I
Thank
have.
you.
Can you go back to the slide before that? I
Yeah.
just wanted to see that one. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, were you looking at that, guys?
Well, I'm looking at that one, so,
Which one?
because this is convenient, I know, but.
Yeah, where they own both sides of the right-of-way, they get the full right-of-way.
Yeah.
And where they only own one side, they get half the right-of-way.
And if you can see on this photo, there's some grayed out areas, bluish grayed out areas. Those are alleyways that have already been vacated. So it's not like we're ending the vacation of Garfield that's already been vacated on the other half. So I don't know if we can see how on this one there's no alleyway there. That part has already been vacated.
Is there really a sign out here that has Dickens?
Did you see it? Did you see
I
it?
didn't see it.
didn't
And now I don't feel as bad because Peggy didn't see it either. And I drove
Get
right.
outta here,
I
just
came
in
out
case
on
Scott
Francis.
or Laura want to talk. We didn't see.
I was feeling pretty stupid.
We're just
Well,
gonna bring our legal
Well,
team
trust
back
me,
on.
There's been times when
Yeah.
you couldn't find
Blue
anything,
one.
so.
But I'm not that
All
one.
right.
There, had a hard time.
Laura and
locating
Scott are
this.
on.
Yeah.
Sorry, did
But
you?
I thought it
Took me
was
a
a
minute.
Right.
street on paper. Was pretty sure it wasn't an actual
Didn't know it
street.
was in theory.
Right.
Yeah, it took a little bit to figure that out,
Well,
but it
I
makes
think
sense
this
once you
makes
do.
sense,
Yep.
Okay. I think we're all good now that we can go to it. Actually, I was there, I just didn't know
You were?
Yeah, me too.
it. Okay, perfect. Well, I'd entertain a motion to council.
I can make the motion.
Go ahead.
Okay, I move that we approve the vacation of Diggins Street, Garfield, and the two alleyways as proposed by the county and approved by staff. How does that sound?
Pretty good.
Okay.
Just
Not
let me
bad.
know what you're doing.
Danielle will tweak it nicely.
Thank you.
Any seconds?
I will second that.
Bryce?
Well, you're on
Perfect.
top of it today.
He is.
All right, ready?
Okay, yes, please.
Vent,
Yes.
Rice,
Yes.
Bauman, Filkins,
Yes,
Bunce, Host,
Yes.
Putvin,
Yes.
Lasher.
I didn't realize we had so many people with Bs.
I didn't either till they said B, 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 so
Want to pull back up the
right.
Adobe?
I'll have fun when they come back.
And then you can either pull
Agreed.
up your R1
Is there anything else we
or
need to look
you
at?
go to the
Yep.
packet.
Good.
Okay,
That was easy, wasn't it, Joe?
It was, thank you.
Have a good day.
thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. That's my back.
Discussion of non-single family uses that must be or should be included in single-family zoning districts.
We're gonna pull up the memo real quick.
Jeez.
It was a big packet. There we go. That's the resolution. One more time. There you go. And then just hit zoom so Laura and Scott are on there. Or the blue one. Yep. Perfect.
Okay, with respect to this item, I wanted to have just some general discussion and make everyone aware of the uses that will have to be in the single-family districts. I know at council level, there's been a lot of concern expressed about what uses are allowed in the R1 through R4. And there's a number of uses that the state mandates that we include in that. But in looking at that, I did have a memo prepared, which you have in your packet from the attorneys, that they talk specifically about what uses we have to include. So when you eventually get the draft of the new zoning ordinance, the single-family districts will include all these uses. And so it's just a kind of a primer and get you ready for what's going to be coming forward. I also wanted to talk a little bit about what is currently allowed in the zoning ordinance and how that we're looking maybe to change that. You should all have the existing zoning ordinance. It's called Division 2, R1 through R4, and it gives all the uses that are permitted under section 46-163. It says principal uses permitted. Those are the uses that are permitted by right. And then under section 46-164, you have the principal uses permitted subject to special conditions. We are kind of changing the direction in the new ordinance. There's a lot of large, intensive uses, such as school sites, church sites, that we're planning to put into a public facilities district. So essentially what we're going to be doing is trying to whittle down the amount of uses permitted by right and special use permit that we can reduce because that we're adding different zoning districts in the new ordinance. And one could argue that a school is not really all that compatible with being next to a single family, especially if the playground's right next to single family where kids are screaming and yelling and and so forth. So that's kind of the direction we're headed. But I wanted to give you a little bit of chance to look through what the current ordinance has and see if there's anything in there that you think that should come out of there. Same thing with cemeteries. I don't think we're going to open up a cemetery in most residential neighborhoods. So a number of those things will come out. The existing cemeteries will probably all go into a public facilities district. But to look at some of those issues or items that are allowed, and then let's talk about whether we keep all those uses or whether they should come out. And then keeping in mind too the memo, I gave you a kind of a one-sheet thing that starts with saying uses that must be permitted in the R1 through R4. I essentially tried to grab the essence of the memo and indicate what has to go into the single-family districts. And our current ordinance says state licensed residential facilities, but it doesn't include any of the subset items. So anybody just reading that wouldn't know, for instance, that these different categories, unless they knew what they referred to, wouldn't automatically know what was allowed to be permitted in the zoning ordinance. So we'll probably include the what's included in state licensed residential facilities, just so anybody who's entrusted to enforce the ordinance is just aware of what has to be permitted and what we have an option to permit. And the reason for this is so that when we do get to the point of working on the zoning ordinance, that you're not surprised as to why we have all these things listed under the single-family residential districts. And with that, if you wanted to take just a minute or two, kind of scan some of the uses permitted and see if there's anything in there that if you like the list as it currently exists, or if there's some things that you would want to maybe pull out of there, whether it be principal uses permitted or those subject to special condition.
Well, John, the state licensed residential facilities, we don't have a choice there, right?
Right,
That's mandated?
right.
Okay.
And that's included in the memo and the memo synopsis. Farms, I guess, we probably could pull farms out of there, I'm guessing, if you concur. The 4, 5, and 6 are probably going to go under the public facilities zoning district. Accessory buildings would be a normal thing. Home occupations, we will probably end up having a special section on home occupations, which classifies, what level of home occupation can be considered in the R1. In the current ordinance, we've actually identified some home occupations that we're actually prohibiting, like small motor repair and things of that nature, because they've been historically a real problem of complaints of people operating those types of businesses within the single-family district.
I have a question. You mentioned 4, 5, and 6 could come out of there, but on 6, a public, parochial, and other private elementary schools offering courses in general education and not operated for profit. Isn't that homeschooling?
Was the question whether that would include homeschooling?
Yes.
I don't think it would, because a homeschool is not actually considered public, parochial, or private.
Okay.
I think it's a separate category in Michigan law. My authority for that is, as you know, I'm a homeschool parent, but
Okay.
I don't think it would fall within that, no.
Okay, thank you. I knew you were
Yeah.
going to answer that.
Yeah.
D, the daycare facilities, that's kind of addressed under the memo. I think that's going to be one that we'll have to allow. And then it kind of gets into regulating the home occupation, which hopefully in the new ordinance we won't have the regulations in the list of uses. We'll give the list of uses, but the regulations will be under the home occupation section in terms of what can be allowed, as a home occupation. So the ones that don't refer to a specific use, but start to regulate, saying like only residents of the dwelling unit, that'll probably be picked up in a different way, so that would be eliminated. Probably same thing with F. Yeah, so basically, they just gave a whole menu of regulations for home occupations within that list. And so we'd probably pull all that out and just list home occupation subject to subsection, whatever we have it as home occupations. And then all the rules for the home occupations would be in there.
So on letter M, the wholesaling of products shall not be permitted at any home occupation site.
Yeah, that would be something that would have to be included in the
Yeah,
home
that's
occupation
different.
regulations. But then we get down into N, and then we get back into other uses that, you could have you could have garage and yard sale type things that have nothing to do with a home occupation if they were run on a limited basis. So we would have to probably provide for how often someone could do a garage sale before it crossed over into the area of being a home occupation or a commercial use. And when you get into the principal uses permitted is subject to special conditions, the first one, churches, that would probably go under the public facilities, as would 2. Probably 3 and 4 would as well. 5, that would be something you should consider whether you would want that to be considered for the more or less single-family residential districts.
So number 3, utility and public service buildings that are where they are so that they can serve the immediate vicinity.
Right, or they're in a strategic location where they need to be there.
Right, okay.
You know, in most cases, I would say, like for number 6, I don't see golf courses.
But I just started mine.
Being in
How's it progressing?
a single-family neighborhood.
Part 3, so really tough.
And then, of course, we got colleges and universities, private swimming pools. Those typically have been included, and we've actually had and approved applications for private swimming pools. Where we probably do need to, for sure, have a conversation is on rooming houses and boarding houses. I don't know if you remember. I vividly remember.
I remember that.
You know, obviously we probably should be considering some area of the city for that use, but as the predominantly single-family districts the right place for that. And then the other thing that we did when we looked at that, it was actually being proposed on a 50-foot wide lot. The new ordinance is proposing to break the single family out between 50, 70, and 100-foot lots. You know, would we want to allow it in any of them, or if we wanted to allow them in some, would it be more in just the 70 and 100, or just the 100-foot wide lots? So that would be another question.
Rooming houses and boarding
Right,
houses?
right. Or do we just feel like they shouldn't be in a single-family district at all, and maybe be considered for more of a multifamily district?
Yep.
I would think
There.
that,
Yeah.
or even in the industrial area but just based on our experience on the last go-round, I feel that way.
I do too. And there's no room for parking usually
Right.
for multiple residents, and all have cars. It's really not, in my mind, that appropriate for residential, single family.
Makes sense with multifamily, yeah.
Yeah, it does.
And likewise, number 10, the family shelter. Do we really need those any longer? The principals, people that are serving the homeless in the community, have opened up a central facility that has men's, women's, and family homeless shelter facilities all under one roof. And I don't know if you remember, but we asked as part of that approval that they shut down their single-family units that were located near the hospital. And I believe that they have done that. So then the question is, do we still need to include family shelters.
Well, Oasis has some mom and children facilities,
Okay.
so we probably should talk about that or talk to them about
Okay.
what that looks like. I'm not aware of where they are, but I know that there are some in the city.
Yeah, we could try to make some attempt to find out what zoning districts those are located in. It's likely that they are permitted or located in a single-family
Residential.
district.
Mhm.
They probably don't make a lot of that real public, do they?
I don't think they can.
No.
Right, they keep it under the
Smart,
radar,
yeah.
because sometimes these women need to get away from people.
Yeah.
Right.
And the final thing I want to draw to your attention is things that I'm asked about that aren't really addressed anywhere. I had a call about 3 weeks ago about a church wanting to do a warming shelter, which was really an odd request, only when it's below a certain temperature. And then, and then I tried to get out of them whether they were going to have any sleeping facilities, which they indicated they would. In my mind, it's a slippery slope from a warming shelter to a homeless shelter.
Yep.
And I just want to see what everybody's feelings are so that we just have a clear idea when somebody calls about these things, it's a yes or a no, more of a clear direction rather than because nobody's ever asked for it, we just have no way to say yes or no. And we would eventually have to forward it to the Planning Commission anyway, just to get a sense of what you wanted to do with it. So that was one of them. And then there's other uses like halfway houses for ex-convicts, battered women's shelters, which I know we do have, and I would think people would support that. I'm sure other people will come forward with other kinds of weird combinations, but when people call, I just need to know, yes, this is allowed, no, this isn't allowed, sort of thing, just so our time in administration is streamlined.
Didn't they part with that transition house down on
They
Mitchell?
did.
Didn't they close that or sell it or
Yeah,
What was that one
the
for?
green one, it was men
transition?
from
Was that for
incarceration.
incarceration? And they closed that? Laura, maybe
Didn't
you
have the funding.
maybe you could weigh in. What's your experience? Do we have the ability to not provide for, halfway houses for ex-convicts?
Right. So with any land use that you're looking at prohibiting, it's going to be the same analysis, which is whether there's a demonstrated need for that land use in the community. So if we did not allow it, then it would be on somebody to come and say, hey, I can prove there's a need for this and you don't allow it. And if we still don't allow it, then potentially they do have an exclusionary zoning claim. So if there's a need for it in the city or in the surrounding area, then by prohibiting it, there's certainly a risk of a challenge to that prohibition.
When you say a need, does it make a difference whether it's a local need or a regional or statewide need?
Yeah, statewide would be too big. I think the language of the statute, what up, so I'm not misquoting it. Here is a zoning ordinance shall not have the effect of totally prohibiting the establishment of a land use within a local unit of government in the presence of a demonstrated need for that land use within either that local unit of government or the surrounding area within the state, unless a location within the local unit of government does not exist where the use may be appropriately located or the use is unlawful. The latter obviously wouldn't apply, but so city or surrounding area, that's not really further defined. Consider, I don't know if it would even go as broad as the entire county, but perhaps the city and surrounding townships. And then the response from the city would have to be that there's no place where it can be appropriately located.
Okay. So, I mean,
Go with that.
That was a
Yeah, I like that
controversial
one.
meeting also.
we could certainly identify a place, and if we didn't, then somebody could come forward with a demonstrated need, and I suppose at that time, we could try to establish, would we have time to establish it if someone came forward with a proposal? Or would they be free to try to pick the spot that they believe that they thought it should go?
No, they'd have to file a lawsuit to have it established as exclusionary, so you would have time. Obviously, the other alternative is to allow it, but place restrictions on it and make sure that there are a lot of safeguards to protect the surrounding land uses.
You know, and then I don't know how you prove like a need for warming shelters. I just
Right.
I just worry about any number of people might think that's a good idea and jump on the bandwagon, and we could lose control of it pretty quickly, especially if they could grow from being warming shelters to homeless shelters.
That could morph really quickly.
So
Well, right. And kind of the question is what, I don't want to say which would you rather have, but if you did allow, just for example's sake, if you allowed homeless shelters in a place in the city with a lot of restrictions, then I think that would counter the argument that warming stations are allowed, right? Because people would then have a place to go already in terms of a homeless shelter.
You know, and the other issue we have is we have certain homeless, obviously, that don't like to follow rules. So the one facility that was sized to handle the area need, we have a certain amount of people who, for whatever reason, would not go there. And then if people feeling the need to be compassionate want to provide a place where people might be intoxicated or on drugs, that could introduce a whole another set of implications.
Right. And it's not unreasonable to say, look, we allow for, a remedy for this and we can't control that people don't use it. That doesn't mean that we allow, for example, tent cities, right? Or these areas where you've got a lot of tents set up for people to camp in, which a lot of, larger cities have obviously been dealing with. If you say, look, we can prohibit that, well, the tents, the other, I'm going to interrupt myself to say the other question is really whether warming stations and, kind of tents are really a land use or an activity on land, which sounds similar, but right, they're different from a zoning perspective. I mean, is the primary purpose of that land going to be as a warming facility or other encampment, or does it have another primary purpose and they just happen to be using it for this? Because it's much easier to prohibit an activity on land than a lawful land use.
Well, I think that what we saw that during this last cold winter was Salvation Army stepped up, and those people who couldn't be in the shelter during the day, for instance, and even those at night, they allowed them to be at the Salvation Army place over on Wright Street during the day to stay warm, and they fed them. And then a local church also came up alongside the Salvation Army and used their facility for a warming shelter. They stayed there with them in the evening. So those two facilities, I mean, it's a church, and it's the Salvation Army, which is a church and a community center.
But when do you cross over from being an accessory use to another primary use to being another full-blown use?
Yeah,
I guess.
Right. And like I said, where it's sporadic, like I think it was there, I think there's an argument that was an activity rather than a use of the land.
So you're saying that could be considered more accessory?
It's not even, it's kind of a different category even than an accessory use. I'm trying to think of a good example to explain it. Like, noise ordinances, right, are not part of zoning because it's an activity on land, right? If you're playing loud music, your land use is not the playing of loud music. Your land use is a house or a business or whatever it is. So same idea here. I'm not going on record saying it's a nuisance, but if you make that kind of analogy, right, of saying, well, having people temporarily staying here for a night periodically, either indoors or if there's an out of doors component, is more of a sporadic activity on land rather than a land use. And again, that significance is that can be much more easily prohibited.
So should we consider that as maybe a separate police power ordinance?
Yeah, I would give some thought to that because I really hadn't thought of it till right when we were talking about it right then, but that might be a way to address it where you at least avoid an exclusionary zoning argument.
Yeah, I'm almost thinking that that would be the way to go. Yeah, because we could break it out as a separate thing. And then we could have the rules for that too. I mean, the one that proposed it, they proposed only running it when temperatures were below, a certain temperature. But this is one of those things where are we going to be watching the temperature day in day out and see if people are there on days where it's not that cold? I mean, it could become another enforcement nightmare.
What if the temperature fluctuates during the same night? Do they have to go in and out? Sorry, it's 33 degrees.
Yep.
Out you go.
Come back at the hour see if it's
Right.
more.
The temperature dips to 32, you can come back in. It's probably not a workable regulation either.
Yeah, we don't need any more difficult to enforce issues.
Yeah,
I think
and
we have
don't
some.
mean to make light of the situation, but it also because in that situation, people are in, they're gonna stay in for the evening. We're not, if we managed it to that level, we wouldn't be asking people to leave. I mean, the city doesn't manage it anyway, but, yeah.
And then we would probably have to touch base with public safety too and see what their intended rules are, and do we want to set up our own, and if they're going to allow people who are under the influence of either drugs or alcohol, how are they going to protect the other people who might be in that facility?
I feel like they would have to have a whole plan set before us as far as what their procedures and protocols would be for that sort of facility activity.
Yeah, so I'm thinking we probably handle that under another ordinance and then just think about how that gets drafted and what protections are in there if we want to go forward and provide for that. And
Yeah, I can chat about that with Mike and the rest of our team too and kind of flesh out what the best way to handle that would be.
And that's probably a different concern than, say, a major issue where if we had a major ice storm and many of the people were out of power for days. Like I lived in Fort Wayne. They opened up certain public facilities for people to stay at because they, just didn't have any power for extended periods. I think that would be something that you could consider differently.
That would be handled under the regional emergency
Plan
preparation plan, though.
Yeah, I think that's different.
Yeah.
All right, that sounds good, Laura, if you can
Okay.
take a look into that. But other than that, if you just, if you have any more issues, I'd like to talk about them because I do want to finalize our language for all the single-family zones, and I do want to include those things that must be included per state statute. I know there could be some concern raised when it gets to council, but I think we'll just have to, explain why it's there.
Sounds good.
And you'll have another chance to look at this when we bring the ordinance forward. I just wanted to see if there was any initial things that caused you some concern.
It might be good if you don't mind, it might be good to send that out to the whole planning commission and just say, hey, this was in your packet, and so if you can just take a really good look at it and provide me any feedback before our next meeting of things, what you might be looking for, that people might want to talk to you about,
Mm-hmm.
All right.
so that everybody does
Yep.
their homework before our next meeting.
Agreed.
Okay. Very good.
Peg can read something when she's sitting there. Nah.
Great reading material.
Okay, what else do we need? Anything on this?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. Wonderful. No old business? Board member comments this evening? Perfect. Okay. No communications, correct?
I did want to add one thing.
Would you, please?
Our rec plan the draft is published and it's in its public hearing stage for that 30 days. That will be presented to you guys at your next planning commission meeting. Did anyone want a physical copy of that? The electronic copy is available on our website. I can certainly email out a copy of it to you guys, but I just wanted to see if anyone wanted a hard copy. I could get it printed and have it available at the counter for.
Email's perfect.
Okay.
I was gonna print it, but it's 64 pages, and that's too much.
Oh.
It's a
Email's
big one.
Well,
good.
she said
Yeah.
she'd print it for you.
She'll
I
pick it
know.
up. You can just stop down and pick it up.
It may
Front and
weigh
back.
12
We'll cut it in
pounds.
half for you.
Yeah, I'll just,
Okay.
I'm
So that
good
was
with
my
the
only thing.
online.
If you change your mind, just shoot me an email and I'll be happy to have one printed for you guys. So.
And Mayor, if you want to look at it as it pertains to recommendations for Diggins Hill, I put quite a few things in there. If you think I've missed any, certainly give me a call and we could add those items to the Diggins Hill project.
Would it be okay if I gave the board an update on that?
Sure.
So, I had brought up a couple of months ago that the Rotary had chosen Diggins Hill, the revitalization of Diggins Hill as our major project for the Rotary auction or gala this year. And we are moving forward full bore with that, and we are going to do a children's playground at the base of and to the left, at the base of the hill and to the left of where the sledding hill comes down. And people are really getting excited about this, and I was really excited. Last week we had our capital improvement planning meeting, the 5-year strategic plan, and the first year, I think there's $175,000 in the first year for Diggins Hill, and then in the following year there's $800 and some thousand for the revitalization of Diggins Hill. So we're just getting really excited about it. So, you know, as much support or information as you would like, we're looking for other organizations, other groups within the community to pull up alongside. Everyone has gifts. You know, it might not be giving financially, but it might be giving of your time, volunteering, doing something out there. It's just a beautiful piece of property.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to start with the playground, but then we'll move it forward from there.
Are they gonna do some clearing? Because there's a lot of trees right
There
there
will
that
have
you're
to be,
describing.
there will have to be some clearing. We talked about that. I did contact the gentleman, and we should have it midweek. We got an initial drawing, and I apologize, I didn't bring it with me. But I asked him about adding a swing set and then also up a side hill, a climbing wall. They kind of build it right into the side of the hill. It's kind of cool. So, but the initial drawing has 2 elements for each age group, and there's 3 age groups. And it's got a forest theme. It's really cute. And so the initial quote came in at $175,000. That's without the swing set or the additional climbing wall. But when we talked to the company, we did talk about, well, you know, if there needs to be some excavation done and we have the opportunity for an in-kind contribution from a local excavator, could we do that for you? And as an example, and he said absolutely, they'd be willing to work with us on any aspect of that.
Good.
Yeah.
Does the owner on that corner house that sits up have any objections? Because this is gonna be right there now.
Yeah, it'll be in his
I
backyard.
don't know, but we'll have public meetings. It's going to be, I mean, we want as much input as, you know, people want to give. And you know, there's also the school property that sits up above, right?
Yeah.
So we've talked from a city perspective about possibly applying for a land acquisition grant to bring that property back into the city and as part of the Diggins Hill project. Or, you know, if there's somebody out there that's of a giving nature, maybe they could buy the property and gift it back to the city. Because originally that property was Diggins Hill property and the city gifted it to the school. But the school cannot gift it back, so just state regulations. So they can only sell it at fair market value. But, you know, even if, even if that property ended up being, you know, a multi-unit family housing, that would still be wonderful, right? If the city got it back and we could do a development up there for housing, it would be a nice addition, because then you could just continue on with the playground area and, you know, those facilities out back. So it just has a lot of potential, and if you get the chance, go up there and stand on the vista. It is really amazing. You'll overlook the city, and somebody even suggested how amazing it would be if we could get a lookout tower that people could go up and look over, like, the trees over around the water tower and see the whole city in the lake. It's gotta be fabulous, so,
That'd be a pretty high tower.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
You have to put an elevator in it for me.
Yeah, it would be a workout,
Those trees are
Either
tall.
that or a ramp that can push us up.
yeah. It was just something, in fact, it was Greg Bach from Salvation Army. You know, we went up there after a Rotary meeting, and he was just like a kid. He said, I had no idea this was all here. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah, so,
that's our backyard.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
nobody
do
ever
feel like
walks
it's a
up over
little
that
bit
hill.
back there.
no.
And since you can't drive up there anymore,
Right? Yeah. Not that some people haven't tried.
I did.
I've seen traffic through there.
I set up a Wi-Fi antenna out there.
Yeah, you did.
I did.
Well, good for
I
you.
needed to do some testing to see if we could reach all the way to my shop,
Oh,
And?
yeah.
and we could easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll keep sharing, and if you have any questions or whatever, talk to John or I or Danielle. Great.
No, I thought that was a fantastic idea to resurrect Dickens Hill.
Oh, me
When you brought that up, I was, that's good,
Oh, yeah.
that's good.
Yeah. I think it'd be really
And
exciting.
I just hope that it gets the respect it deserves.
You know, right now, social media, when the Cadillac news flipped it out on social media, there was nothing negative. I mean, people are all about it.
Good.
And unless there's something that I'm not seeing, and when we have conversations with folks, they're like you, it's like, I love that.
Well, that's why it got shut down, vandalism. City quit.
Right, but, you know, when they built that really wonderful when Rotary built that really wonderful playland out at Kenwood, that was a community project.
Yes, it was.
People, Rotarians, people within the city got out there hands-on, and they built that out there, and so now it's busy out there, and people have their eyes on it, and
Okay.
I believe that if we do the same thing with this,
Mhm.
and there's more activity there, good activity there, then that'll deter that as not cool.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I hope, yes.
So, Marcus always says, sky's the limit.
Mhm.
Oh,
But I
it's
told him,
funny.
don't give the Rotarians a heart attack.
Yeah.
Sticker price heart attack.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Which you could do, yes.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you for that update,
You're
man.
welcome.
No public, so we got no public comment. And other business, and if no one cares, we're out.